guys. Welcome back to another episode of Enkindled Voices or Voices on Fire. That's our podcast name. I'm Maria.
And I'm Carmen, and today we have a special guest.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah. I'm Maria's sister and Carmen's friend. We grew up together, so especially with Maria. I mean, I've known her since she was a little baby. I hope so. But yeah, I'm excited to be here today. Thank you guys for inviting me. So yeah, let's get this started.
Okay, do you guys want to say how we got into this topic a little bit? We were just again at another meeting, and then we started having a conversation, and you know us, we're like, let's record another episode of the podcast. So here we are. So Sarahi and Sarah will give you guys a little background of how we decided on tonight's topic.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, October. So it's the month of the Rosary. It's dedicated entirely to the Rosary. But besides that, I mean, it's a huge thing. Besides that, it's weird how this topic has been creeping up in our spiritual lives and our daily lives for quite a while now. Week after week, every little talk that I listen to, every book that comes up, everything just talks about the Rosary, the power of the Rosary, the power of Mary. And just how huge of a help and how big of a weapon really they are for us in our spiritual battles on a daily basis. So yeah, it's just like this ongoing thing, and today we thought, well, let's talk about it a little bit more. So here we are, the Rosary.
Yep. We were talking a little bit of how powerful the Rosary truly is when you pray it with such a belief. One example that we were using was a friend of ours. She sent over. We have this group chat, and she sent over this link of a person's testimony or their conversion story into becoming Catholics. And pretty much short story is this guy. His conversion was he used to be in a satanic cult, and he
for
was
20 years
for 26 years or something like that, and he was in there. He was deep, like he was high, like
yeah, he was like one of the high priests, I think. Oh, they were like the high wizard or something like that, like top 10 guys.
Yeah. And then he was talking about how in this specific example, how he was in an abortion clinic, and he was performing, like at this point this guy helped with over, I think, 126 abortions, something like that. And there was 3 times where they weren't successful with those abortions. And so he talks about the scenario where he's walking into the clinic. It's around 8-9 p.m. And then he sees some guys like outside with their motorcycle, and he said normally there wasn't anyone around it because it's late at the clinic. But then he also notices another group of people, and he notices that they have a rope. He grew up Baptist, so he didn't know the Rosary. So he just said, that's strange, like they have some ropes, and it was dark, so he couldn't really see. Sorry. They head in, and then they're in the second floor, and there's windows there, and they just start noticing that they're like chanting, and they're like, well, we chant too in our group, so it's like, let's see what they're saying. So they open the window, and then all they hear is like the chanting, and they start repeating, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. But they didn't know like even like the Hail Mary or nothing. They end up saying a whole Hail Mary without even realizing what it was. And then they go on to the procedure, like the abortion part. And during that part, like they're like, okay, man, we've been here for 30 minutes, like there's no baby. And the ladies are like, come on, guys, I'm about to give birth. The baby's coming. And then both that guy and the doctor, they're like, yo, there's no baby coming down. Like, there's nothing. And within a couple of minutes, a baby was born. And they just hear the baby and the baby crying. They're like, what the heck? And he explains how normally, like, when the women actually have a baby or the abortion is unsuccessful, that baby goes out into adoption, into like a regular family for adoption.
That's so crazy now that you bring up that topic, because he said something. I heard the testimony as well, and he said something about that they told him, when he was barely starting. I mean, he started doing abortions at what, like 12 or
12.
13. Um, so what they told him was, hey, because he asked, he's like, hey, isn't this illegal? And what they told him is, if the baby is inside the womb, it's okay, it's legal. But if the baby's outside, then that's murder. So that really stuck with me, like how just because a baby changes location, how it becomes legal or illegal. Like, seriously? I mean, it's the same baby, it's the same life. Like 2 seconds ago, he was just as old as he is now, days wise. And now, just because he now doesn't have a wrapping, the womb, just because he doesn't have wrapping, now it's murder. Like, it should be murder even inside. But anyway, that's beside the topic.
So
But
yeah, he was just like kind of saying like how that specific time there was a group of people outside of the abortion clinic and they were praying the rosary. So at that moment he couldn't like it didn't make sense to him, you know? But then he says it happened again 2 other times or something like that, and this it was on the same scenario. So he said like, hey, like if you still think that the power, like even by being outside an abortion clinic, or that your rosary is not going to make an effect, let me tell you, it does matter and it does make a difference. And I was a witness to it, and I didn't believe, and like he did some bad things, but look, if I could tell you, then it's like, oh yeah. So I was like, that's
yeah,
crazy.
I was also listening to this other priest. I was listening to this other priest. He also converted into Catholicism when he was like 21, after being, chased down by the police, being wanted in other countries. And he was saying this story, this other testimony about something that was happening. There was this murderer around the area, and he went around murdering college students. Like, he was wanted, like, he was being looked up all over. And he would go into dorms and he would go and kill girls while they're sleeping. Anyway, he goes and kills 2 girls in their dorms. He gets to one and he opens up the door, and as soon as he's about to step in, like, he just gets pushed back. Like, there's this force that just pushes him back, pushes the weapon, he gets thrown out, like thrown, and he loses sight of the weapon. And then the police catch him. Like, that's when they caught him. Anyway, he's wondering, like, why? What happened? Anyway, the girl wakes up and she is like paralyzed of fear because, she was sleeping. She didn't know what was happening. Anyway, what what happened is the police started asking her, it's like, hey, like, what happened? And she said, I don't know, I was praying because I promised my mom that when I went away to college, I would pray the rosary every single day. And today I was really tired, so I fell asleep praying the rosary. So I fell asleep with the rosary in my hands. And I don't know. So she's told that to the priest because she had refused to release that information to anyone else. Anyway, the guy gets convicted for murder. Years later, he's on death row, and he asks to talk to a priest. So he ends up talking to the same priest that the girl talked to when this incident happened. And the murderer says, he's like, this really strange thing happened on my last murder. He said, I was about to walk in there, and I don't know why. I don't know why. As soon as I walked in, I got thrown off. And there was nothing there except this girl holding something, and it just threw me off, and with a great force. And like, there was nothing, and except we know that it was because she was praying the rosary. We know that it's such a powerful weapon. And when we say weapon, we're not just saying like well, I mean, it could be painful if you get smacked with one, but but not weapon as in like, we're not saying it as an analogy. It's a real weapon. Like, it has real power. And just these 2 testimonies, I mean, amongst millions that are unknown for, just kind of prove of how much it could do, how much praying a rosary could do. And there's so much history behind it. I mean, the rosary was given to us by Mary, by God. They have sent the rosary down here to help us, to bring us back to grace. I mean, the rosary was given to us at a time when it's just like the world was down, when it was, in this disaster. And that's when, if you think about it, that's when all the apparitions come across. Like Guadalupe, when she came across, is because the Aztecs were worshiping other gods. Like, they didn't know Christianism, like they didn't know anything. And that's when Mary appeared. Like, every single major thing happens when something bad is happening. So I mean, just because something's bad is happening now doesn't mean that we're alone. God is always there. And those miracles, this rosary kind of proves that God is there and he will always help us. I mean, there's been battles when, I mean, like, I also heard about this other battle where that basically saved Christianity in the West, because the way that this priest presented it is like, the reason you right now are not worshiping Buddha, the reason right now that you're not worshiping Buddha, that you're not, going down and praising who knows who, is because of this one battle where there was 40, it was a military of 40,000 soldiers coming down from the east, and they were going to take over. And they just, had those intentions of taking over. But Rome and the Pope, they didn't want to let that happen, because they know how disastrous that could be. So they gathered like 6,000 people. That was our army of 6,000 versus 40,000. And what happened was that they were praying the rosary, and the leader, the main guy, he got his sword, because back then they battled with swords still. So anyway, he went to the ironsmith, and he said, "Hey, engrave this rosary onto my sword." And he went and he fought, and they won. Like 6,000 versus 40,000. Like, yeah, some people died, but for them to defeat that huge of an army, such a great disadvantage. And they won because they had that faith on the rosary. Like, it's a real weapon. And such a big disaster could have happened, but God was there and he provided everything for us. All we had to do was say yes and have faith.
It's crazy.
It
Crazy.
really is.
I was like, dang. I remember, like, when we were younger, like, praying the rosary used to seem like the most boringest thing ever.
It felt like it was like an
It
hour and a
felt
half.
so long. Like, yeah, like, okay, so at our parish, they started this thing where every week they would go taking around, what would you call it? Like, they would go taking around an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and pretty much what you would do is on Mondays you would get a group of friends and you would invite them over to pray the rosary. So we would go around to other houses, and that's kind of how we would pray the rosary the most. But oh my gosh, like, you're little, it seems so boring, and I hated doing it. I was just like, oh my god, like, here we go again, like, it's gonna be so boring.
And it feels so, like, so much repetition, and the songs, and you gotta sing. And oh yeah, I definitely was not a big fan either.
It's just
Because
like,
it just felt, again, and I don't know why, but when you're younger, like, minutes can seem like hours. And now when you're grown up, I don't know what it is about it. Everything goes by so quick. And really, you can pray the rosary in like 15 to 20 minutes.
or like sometimes even 10-15 minutes, and I was like, dang, like, why did it seem so much longer?
Why did it seem
Like,
so long?
I remember I would even make if I knew we were praying the rosary that day, I'm like, I'm gonna try to fall asleep so that they don't wake me up, or so that I won't have to do it. But
Yeah,
it was just like,
I remember I would be so jealous because you would fall asleep and I'd be like, dang, praying. I could never, as a kid, I could never ever fall asleep unless it was night. I would try to fall asleep. You know, when you're a kid and your favorite thing is to fall asleep in the car and your dad carries you and you wake up and you're in your bed. Yeah, that never happened to me because I would never fall asleep.
As soon as I would see like we were getting nearby, I'm like, I'm gonna fall asleep. I'm too tired.
Yeah. Or they used to say like, oh, if you fall asleep while praying, it's because Mama Mary is carrying you and she's putting you to sleep. So sometimes, yeah, when I was younger, I would, use this as an excuse like, oh,
Yeah.
Mama Mary put me to sleep. But really, I put myself to sleep because I didn't want to put up with it. But it's like so many missed opportunities now that we learned more about it. Now that we know its true power, it's like, dang, I can't believe I let all of that happen. But I mean, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. Yeah.
Your present.
And your present, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even it's crazy because it's like we've been doing like more novenas or like listening to like the rosary more, and there's like different kinds of like rosaries that I mean, it's the same rosary but with like different intentions, and in specific prayers they start saying like we pray for all those who, even if you're playing it in your house, it's like for all those who are asleep, who are unconscious of like even what they're praying. So it's like even if you're like asleep, then it's still like working within your life or stuff like that.
Yeah, like that girl who fell asleep while praying the rosary. I mean, that girl was gone. She was asleep and it still protected her because she had faith. And Mary has so much power. And really, I mean, they're always saying it's the devil versus, they're always saying like it's the devil versus Jesus. But really, I mean, you can't put anyone versus Jesus versus God because he's just so much powerful. And really, the equivalent or like the opposite of the devil would be Mary. But Mary has God with her. Mary has God to back her up. So you can just imagine how much extra power she has.
And he fears her too because it's like she gave birth to Jesus, man. So it's like he I always say Mary is like a little dolphin because it's like when I was in elementary school I learned that sharks are afraid of dolphins. So I was like, whenever they would ask, it's like, what's your favorite? I don't think is it reps? No. Favorite animal, just leave it at that. I'd say, oh, all the kids would say, oh, mine's a shark, and I'm like, mine's a dolphin because sharks are scared of dolphins. So, and I was small, so I was like, yeah, I'm a dolphin. But yeah, that's what I'm like. Mary is like that tool that no one sees coming, but the amount of power, the amount of fear that the devil has towards her, it's like, it's insane. So it's like, that's crazy.
It really is. I mean, our youth minister was just talking about how one of our sisters, one of the religious sisters that's here, has been asked to assist during a exorcism. Yeah, and she was saying that she's been present in exorcisms, and as soon the whole thing's going down, and as soon as they start invoking Mary. As soon as they start asking for Mary, she says that you can feel the ground shaking. You can feel it shaking because that's just how scared the devil is of her. And I mean, if you think about it, since the Genesis, when Satan tempted Eve, God said, you will... I don't know the exact quotes, but he basically said like, hey, you're going to sliver through the floor and you're going to bite man's heel and and woman will step on your head and man will step on your head. I mean, what does Mary do? She steps on the snake's head. And that's what she does. She is there to defeat him. So, I mean, if you ever feel like you can't go on, like there is nothing that could save you, Mary can save you. I mean, who is the prince, the king of depression, of hate, of sadness, of lust? The devil, he is the king of that. He is the king of lies, of everything. But if Satan is the king of the bad, then Mary is the queen of the good. Ooh, who's here?
Someone. It scared me. I like felt something like...
Oh, I
It's
know. I
our
felt something
it's our
behind me,
daily
and I was like,
podcast interruption. I was like, I had been hearing the little things. I was like, oh my gosh, something's here.
I just
And I was
heard
like,
the door creak
and I was like,
behind
oh,
me.
heck no! It's late once again. Okay, I might
Just
And we
yeah.
were talking about, scary things. Just kidding.
Yeah, that's why I
But
was like,
anyway, I was saying that, whenever you're feeling depressed, whenever you're feeling down, that's because the devil is feeding lies to you. He's telling you you're sad. He's telling you, no one can save you. He's telling you can't pull yourself out of this. But if the devil is saying that to you, to everything, there's always an opposite. And Mary is the opposite. Mary is the queen of truth. Mary is who's going to help you bring yourself out of that pit. She's going to help you out of depression. She is your saving grace because she is with God and God acts through her. And like whenever you're scared, just say Mary, just invoke Mary and remember that the floor shivers, that the devil shivers at the mentioning of her name.
Yep. So even if you don't know like the whole Hail Mary, for some reason, just say Mary, 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 and the power of that, it's like you won't believe it.
Yep.
Okay, so it's October, the month of the Rosary. Should we say some things like how the Rosary has helped? Oh, here I have some things, but you guys could talk for now.
Okay.
like the power of it, like
I'm
what it helps
starting
with.
because I used to not have a good relationship with the Rosary because we
Or
had
with
that
Mary.
we had that misconception of the Rosary of it's so long, it's so boring, whatever. Anyway, I'm trying to get through that, right? So I'm starting to work on praying the Rosary now that I know how much power it has, now that I know what it really can do. I am trying to incorporate it more into my daily life. And Fatima, the apparition of Fatima, she tells us pray the Rosary for the salvation of the world. And she's been telling that since 1917. And I hadn't listened, and I always knew that she was asking us to pray, but it's like now that it's clicking, it's like, okay, I really need to pray. Now that you take a look around, it's not a surprise that the world is going downhill. It's not a surprise that evil is out there. But we have the Rosary, and the Rosary can save us.
I remember when we were little, they used to say like each rosary or each Hail Mary that you pray was essentially like another step into heaven, or things like that it would help you get there. So it's like, oh, well, I mean, because like really when we're praying, it's like we're praying to Mary, but it's like there's this misconception about
worshiping her.
And it's like, no, not necessarily. Like when we pray to her, we are asking for her intercession. So pretty much what that is, it's like, Mary, please ask your son, or like be our bridge to him.
Mm-hmm. If you even just kind of dissect the Hail Mary just a little bit, yes, we do say Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord is with you. We're saying the Lord is with her. Blessed are you amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Jesus is in there. Hail Mary, you're full of grace. And now think of the end where, really pay attention to this end where it says, pray for us, sinners, now and at the hour of our deaths. Amen. We're not telling her, oh, Mary, you're so... we are acknowledging that she is full of grace. We are acknowledging that she's out there. We acknowledge that she's with God, but we're asking her to pray for us. We're not praying to her in the worshiping kind. We're asking her to pray for us now for our intentions, and at the and when we die, she'll be there when we die. I don't know what your family life is like. I don't know what kind of family you're coming from, but some of our friends, they're the only Catholic ones. Some of my friends, their families don't respect Mary the way we do. Some of them don't believe in the afterlife. So if you think of Coco, of how, if when the people die, If nobody remembers them, then they just disappear. I mean, if when you die, if nobody prays for you and you go to purgatory, you're gonna be there for a really long time. But if you pray now to Mary, if you pray the Hail Mary, Mary will be there. And Mary will be praying for you to join heaven.
Dang it, it went away. I was reading this thing. Was it this the one that you were reading? Or no?
No, it was a
The
different one, but you
15
could mention that
things?
one.
There's this like Facebook page and what Sarah was saying right now, and I was reading it and it said like one of the, because I guess the rosary has 15 promises
Oh yeah,
when you pray it. And so one of them, it says, I shall deliver from purgatory those who have been devoted to the rosary. So, like, that's like one of the promises. So it shows, like, because obviously when you die, you go to purgatory. You don't go straight to heaven.
Unless you're like really.
Yeah,
There are
unless.
some people who do.
Yeah, but, like, the rosary, like, will help you, you know?
If you happen to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then one of them that says number 11 it says, "You shall obtain all you ask of me." This is God making a promise to you. "You shall obtain all that you ask of me by recitation of the rosary." So if you pray to God, if you ask him for whatever your intention is and you pray the rosary, it shall be granted.
Mm-hmm.
It will be. I mean, we were just listening to that one testimony of the girl who did the 54-day novena. And
Oh yeah.
and
So okay, so this 54-day novena, look, if there is something that you really want to, like, that you really need help with, even your future spouse or husband, things like that, like, well, we could probably put the link of it, but there's this girl, she gives her testimony of like how she prayed. A novena is praying. It's pretty much praying the rosary for 9 days, and you pray it for a special intention, and then hope that by the end of it, it's like you get answers to your prayers. But this 54-day novena, so what it consists of is for 24 days or 27 days. For 27 days, you pray the rosary every day, and then you're just praying for that intention of yours. So, and then for the rest of the 27 days, whether it was granted or not, because you're grateful of the results, then you're just giving thanks but still praying the rosary every day. So in this case, this girl, she does her novena, and at first she was dating someone at the time, and she just wanted him to be like more into his faith and everything, and she would go to daily mass. So she's like, Lord, like, Mary, like, I really want him to join the church more. So she's doing her rosary, and I think like on the 27th day or something like that, he calls her and he says, I went to like daily mass, and I don't know, strangely, like, I think I want to start coming to mass more often now. So she's like, oh really, that's strange, I wonder what changed, because he didn't know she was praying that rosary, for that novena, for him. So then she goes on the next 27 days, and she's just like, thank you, Mary, for answering my prayers and stuff like that. Yeah. So then, like, time later, she's still praying.
Don't spoil it though.
She's still no, like, she's still praying that she does another 54-day novena, but this time she's like, I guess they're further in the relationship, and she's just praying for like, hey, if we're meant to get married, like, I'm gonna pray so that he could get the courage to like ask me to marry him. So then she does the novena, and on the 27th day, she's like, okay,
you gotta click the link to find out what happens.
no, I'm gonna tell it to them so that they could do it, because it helps them by praying the rosary. Okay, so then on the 27th day, she gets a phone call, and then she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, it worked the first time, he's about to like ask me to marry him. So then she picks up, or they meet, something like that, and then he's like, things aren't working out. So and they ended up breaking up, and she had to continue the rest of the 27 days still being like, Hail Mary, full of grace, like, thank you, Mary, for answering my prayers, even though that's not what she wanted. But ultimately, it was like helping. It did help her, because she realized that's not who she was meant to marry, and stuff like that. So she does this novena. A couple of years later, or however long it passed, she feels like in her heart that she has to actually start praying for her spouse. So she redoes it, and then she gets to the 54th day or something like that. And the day afterwards, after she had just finished it, she ends up meeting what ends up being her husband, and they started dating shortly, and then within like 3 months of dating, I think he went out and bought the engagement ring, but he didn't give it to her right away. So then, yeah, I think later on they redid another novena together, and yeah, they're now happily married and they're doing great and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you really have a special intention, something that's like that you feel you need to do, pray more, then I'd highly suggest the 54-day novena. But Google the instructions, because there is specific instructions of how to pray it, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then another thing to keep in mind is, it's not, God's not a genie. He's not, he is a parent. He is, the one thing that God wants from us is for us to be happy. And, God being almighty, all powerful, he knows you more than you know yourself, because he created you and he knows exactly what will make you happy. And sometimes we don't have that clear mind to actually see what will make us happy. We think that, you know, something will make us happy. I don't know, back in the day, I used to think having bangs will make me happy. But, looking back at it, my pictures like, oh, who took these of me? And, you end up regretting some of the things that you think make you happy. But God knows exactly what will make you happy. And sometimes, although it seems that God doesn't answer your prayers, that God, has forgotten about you, that he doesn't care about you, no, that's not true. Those are lies from the devil. Those are lies that the evil guy wants you to believe so that he can pull you away from God. So even though you don't get exactly what you ask for, again, God is a parent. He wants you to see you happy. Maybe what you want is not what's best for you, because he has something even better in hand for you. He knows what will make you the most happiest, as long as you have faith and as long as you have patience. Because again, everything has its own time. Maybe, like, I mean, think about a job. If you're not prepared for it, if you don't know what you're doing at the moment you apply for it and you don't get it, sure, you're sad about it, but maybe it just wasn't your time. Maybe you had to live more life experiences for you to truly be the person you're meant to be, for you to truly become the person you're meant to become. And maybe you won't get it right away. Maybe you'll get it years later, but you will get it. And or you'll get something even better. I mean, like this girl, she didn't get to marry her first boyfriend, but she got to marry someone even better, someone who was meant to be with her, someone who would make her, bring sanctity out of her, and someone she would help become a saint, because in the end, that's what matters. We're supposed to help each other become saints.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the 15 promises of the Rosary, one that I was reading, it says, "You shall obtain all you ask of me by the recitation of the Rosary." So it's literally saying like, ask and you will receive. But the other one, it's like also thinking about like at the afterlife, or like that. Where is it? Oh, okay. So it says like, "The Rosary shall be a powerful armor against hell. It will destroy vice, decrease sin, and defeat heresies." Like, man,
Like,
and
what do
this
those fancy words even mean?
heresies.
Okay, we're going to define them for you. What? I didn't know. I had to look it up, okay?
Define
Sorry.
heresies.
Well, first of all, what is a vice? Because it says it will destroy vice. Well, let's define vice. Vice is define vice. It's in my history. Vice is immoral or wicked behavior. So basically, it's saying by praying the rosary, you will defeat wicked behavior. You will defeat evil behavior. What's the next one? I lost it.
Decrease sin. We know what
it will
sin
decrease
is.
sin. Yeah. So by you becoming, being more devoted to praying the rosary, you will try to behave better. You will be more mindful of your actions. So naturally, your sins will decrease.
And heresies, it's a belief or opinion contrary to orthodox religious, especially Christian doctrine. So those are bad. Like,
Yeah, there is a lot of heresies and there's a lot of, things happening right now. But yeah, basically a heresy is something like saying, oh, we believe Mary is the mother of God. We believe Mary, what we believe about Mary. We believe that God came to life, that he resurrected, and a heresy would be something that contradicts what we believe. So a heresy would say something like, "No, God did not rise from the dead. A it's simply something people say to make you believe that he's real." So heresy is something that contradicts our doctrine. So something that contradicts what we believe in, something that contradicts our teachings. And it's happened, in the history. It's happened where Saint Dominic was given this rosary. That's where it became known, what the rosary, as we know it, became to be. It used to be something similar, used to be used before that. But then something happened where other people were jealous and they said, like, no, why did Saint Dominic get it and not us? So they started trying to change the history books. They started trying to change those things to say that they received it instead. But then, so there was this huge mess up. But then later on, this apparition happened where I think in Colombia, it happened where this apparition of Mary giving the rosary as we know it now to Saint Dominic and giving something else to the Franciscan brothers. And it's just like she proved and she cleared up the history books. So yeah, that's where it shows that she defeats heresies, because she cleared up something that was being taught wrong.
and I think, I don't know, like, how much you guys know about it or like how we can define it, but it's like, if you don't really believe in Mary, or you have trouble believing that it's like she's the true mother of God, it's like, I know that a lot of the times it's like, well, if it's just like, I don't know, how would I say it? Like, because they get caught up with like, oh, there's so many different like virgins. It's like Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Fatima, and La Virgen del Carmen. There's like all these different ones. So it's like, is it really just one? Or it's like, it's hard to believe, but it's like, it's just one. It's just wherever she made different apparitions. Then it's like, according to the culture, she appeared differently. So it's like, and they all named her differently because it's like,
so that they could relate. I mean, imagine if Guadalupe, because she showed up, with a tan skin tone, wearing signs, the flowers that we knew. Imagine if she had shown up with like blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin. We would have been like, oh no, it's another person trying to rule over us, the Aztecs, they're trying to kill us again. So they wouldn't have accepted her. They wouldn't have taken her in as good as they did. But because she showed up to us and we could relate to the way she looked, we were able to accept her message even more. So she does that continuously throughout the world, so that, it's basically like changing outfits in a way. Like if you go, like if you go to different places, you want to dress differently according to the weather, according to the culture as well, because you want to be respectful. It's similar to that. So Mary does that, and it's just one mother of God. It's just one Mary, but with different names.
And she didn't have more kids, none of that. She just had Jesus. Saying otherwise, it's also, is it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't, is it a heresy? No, it has another name for it. But yeah, she had one kid. And that was Jesus.
Yes.
And she ascended into heaven.
Yes.
What else? So I guess to like kind of start wrapping up, it's like, today is October 2nd. There is still 29 days left of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30, 31. Whenever we upload this, hopefully soon, start praying. Like, I would like challenge you to start praying if you can't pray a rosary every day, then at least pray a Hail Mary once every day for like the rest of October to like kind of start that habit.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we, you know,
Or even like
God understands, it's, you can't just throw yourself in there. Some people do, and, that's awesome. But sometimes you just gotta, first dip your toe and then, slowly emerge into it. So,
yeah,
yeah, start by Hail Mary. If Hail Mary, you already do that, then
try
maybe
a
try a
decade.
decade. Just what's a decade? It's 10 Hail Marys and an Our Father.
And you could offer it for like a different intention.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could just say like I'm grateful today for like all of this. It's like
Yeah.
thank you, Mary. Or you could say like today's intentions. I offer it for these struggles, or I offer it for this exam. Please help me out. Even for the in, I'm blanking out for the necessities of the Pope, or of what's the restoration of the church, abortion, all the abortions, all that's going down in Mexico. Like I know that right now it's like getting really ugly because they are legalizing abortions now. So it's like there's so much that's happening, and it's like yeah, I'm like
If you're already praying the rosary, if that's, no problem for you, try to go deeper, try to do a devotion. There's this something that Our Lady of Fatima asks for us to do is the five first Saturdays of to offer them for the restoration of the church. I don't know if that's Fatima.
yeah, like if you're really discontent, it's like if you don't know where you are with your faith right now, if you're like if you're discontent right now with like how the Catholic Church is going, or the churches in general are, then start praying for the restoration of it. Like don't just sit back and complain about it. Like really that's just feeding it, like whatever's happening, feeding it off. And if like there's anything that we learned from this testimony that we've all just recently watched, is it's like there's people that are set out there to like specifically dive into churches, to break them apart and to start these scandals.
Yeah, he was talking about his testimony was seriously. He's like, my job at the top of this satanic cult, my job was there was three things I had to do. One was to start gossips about the Catholic Church. The second one was to separate churches like his sole purpose in his job, his position was to say things that will separate the church. He would send out specific demons or whatever to separate churches, to create division between them.
Between like the own community members. So it's like one, it was like the Baptist church, just so that they would separate amongst each other. And like while he was there, he broke over 120 churches. Like
he
divided them because it's like that's how much they infiltrate. So it's like, and in the Catholic Church we see that more happening, but it's just because we're bigger. So it's like obviously when something happens, it's not that it's only happening within the Catholic Church. It's like no, it's happening all around. We just get more hate for it, or because it's like again it just happens. But also like I don't know, that's what it's like. Start praying for the restoration of our church.
Yeah, if you're not happy and you feel like you can't do anything about it, you can pray. Prayer is so powerful. God listens to you. God is always there with you. And one thing, even if you feel like he's not there, one thing I've learned recently is like you can't really rely on your feelings, because even if you feel depressed, God is there. God is always with you. He promised that he would always be there with you. Even if you don't accept it, he is there. It's up to you to let him in your heart. And don't rely on your feelings, because Satan can mess with your feelings. He can make you feel depressed. He can make you feel sad. He can make you feel specific ways. So don't trust those feelings. Trust that God is there with you no matter what.
Even if you feel like your prayers aren't being answered, remember we're not on our time, we're on God's time. So it's like whenever he feels that it is right, he will set those like he will be answering those prayers. He will be giving you all the good stuff all at the right moment. He knows when to let all these things happen. And yes. And yeah, I mean, it's like we could dive into this so much deeper, because it's like this whole topic. There's like anger towards God, where it's like, why are you allowing all of this to happen? It's like, no, it's complicated, but we will get into it. You know,
It's not that. Well, I don't know.
it's not that it's complicated, but it's like, okay, so I mean,
It
okay,
was explained to me in a simple way.
okay, you could
where it's like, one of the things that people are like, well, if God is so good and God is so merciful and God is so loving, why did he allow, for example, the twin towers to fall? Why did he allow such big devastation? Why does he allow kids to be murdered? Why does he allow rape? I mean, if you think about it, and it's just a quick short answer, really, we can go way deeper into it, but God gave us free will. He gave us the option to do whatever we want, because God is not going to force us to love him. That's how much he loves us, that he's not going to force us to do anything we don't want. So just as we can choose to be good, just as we can choose to love God, we can choose not to love him. We can choose not to be obedient. We can choose to do wrong. And it just happens that a lot of people choose to do wrong. And because God gave us that choice, he's not going to stop those people, because he promised that he would give us free will. So sometimes those things happen as a result of people failing to love, because those people don't love the way they're supposed to. They're hurting others, and we just happen to suffer those repercussions. But God is going to be there with you as long as you ask him. Yes, he gave us free will, but he also gave us free will. He also wants us to ask him.
mm-hmm.
He's not leaving us alone just because he said, okay, you can do whatever we want. He's not going to sit back and watch you fail. No, he wants you to ask him for help. He wants you to call out to him. He wants you to pray. That's what prayer is. Prayer is asking him to do something, to help you with something. And you might say, well, if God knows everything, then why doesn't he know that I need help? Well, he knows that you need help.
But he wants you to ask for it again because of that free will. It's like, if you don't, it's like, ask and you shall receive. If you don't ask, then it's like, okay, I know she could use it, but she's not asking. So it's like, really? Like,
yeah. And then sometimes he does, give us a little help sometimes because we don't know it. But again, that could be because somebody else is praying for us, or he just wants to give us that grace, that gift, that he knows that if he helps us now, in the future, we will turn to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just to finish off, there's this quote that, like, I'm doing this, like, Bible study kind of thing, and it doesn't really go with the rosary, but when I read it, I was like, people just, like, need to hear these things. So it's from 2 Timothy 1, chapter 1, verse 7. So it says, for God did not give us a spirit of cowardice. Cowardice? Covardía? Yeah. But rather of power and love and self-control. So it's like all those lies that are going into your mind right now, that you aren't worthy, that you aren't strong enough, that you can't do it, all those things. It's like God did not give, he gave us the strength and power to pull through.
Mm-hmm. Even if you feel weak, I mean, just know this. You are an instrument of God. You are here, and God is the doctor. He is the one moving you, because through God we receive everything. And if you just let him, he will give you the strength, because human strength is not that much, but godly strength is huge. If you let him, he will act through you. If you let him, he will give you the strength. If you let him, he will give you peace. If you let him, he will teach you to love. As long as you let him.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Voices on Fire. Or is there anything else that needs to be said? I mean, it ended kind of abruptly, but I felt like, there's still
you
more.
You always need that hook.
I mean, like, there's still plenty of time. We could just also dedicate this whole October to, like, talking more about the power of the rosary, or miracles or things like that have happened, but we'll see. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Enkindled Voices, and on Facebook at Enkindled Voices, and on YouTube at Enkindled Voices. Okay, so we're back. If you want to listen to the testimony that we were talking about, it's around 40 minutes, but we would highly suggest, it's like it just lets you in into like it's deep. It's some
Very eye-opening.
It's very eye-opening. It's crazy. Like you wouldn't even imagine that, like how this was going on. But his testimony, he converted also because of his encounter with Mary. Like, we'll put a link below. What's his name?
His name is Zach King.
Yeah.
And he was in a Divine Mercy Congress. And yeah, we'll put the link down below. Click on it, watch it. Just FYI, it is a little strong. So,
but you know what? We live in a very unfiltered world now, so I think you need to listen to it. Like, yo, this guy started all of this at the age of 12, so it's like you could only imagine, like, now with the internet, everything that we have access to, like the things people are diving into is crazy. So yeah, we'll make sure to put the links down below, and yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, bye.